Welcome to the Sleeping Dragon, where stories come to life as you drift into worlds of myth and mystery. So settle in, close your eyes, and let the stories carry you away as you gently drift to a good night's sleep. Let us dive into the story of the rise and fall of Moria. In the deep, distant past, when the world was still young and the stars shone brighter in the skies of Middle-earth, the dwarves first awoke in the heart of the world. Created by Ol the Smith, one of the Valar, they were known as the Khazad in their own tongue, a people of stone and steel, of fire and craft. Ol made the dwarves strong, resilient, and filled with an enduring love for the earth and all its treasures. But unlike the elves, who were awakened by the light of the stars, the dwarves were shaped by the rock and stone beneath the world. Among these first dwarves, there was one who stood above all others in stature and wisdom, Durin, the first of the seven fathers. Let us dive into the story of the rise and fall of Moria. In the deep, distant past, when the world was still young, Durin was known as the Deathless, not because he could not die, but because he lived longer than any of his kin, and his line endured for many generations. He was the progenitor of the Longbeards, the mightiest and most renowned of the dwarven clans. Durin wandered long and far across Middle-earth in search of a home for his people. He was drawn ever westward, following the hidden paths beneath the mountains, listening to the whispers of the earth itself. His journey was long and fraught with peril, but Durin was steadfast, and he pressed on, driven by a vision that only he could see. It was during this wandering that he came upon a place of great beauty and power, a high vale nestled within the arms of the misty mountains, where the cold winds whispered secrets from the peaks above. In the heart of this vale lay a shimmering lake known as Khazad-Dum, or Miramir in the common tongue. The waters of this lake were as clear as glass, reflecting the sky above with such perfect clarity that it seemed as though the heavens had descended to earth. Durin gazed into the waters of Miramir, and as he looked, he saw a crown of stars reflected above his head, glittering in the twilight sky. This was a sign, a prophecy that his line would endure through the ages, and that this place was destined to be the home of his people. Filled with awe and reverence, Durin named this place Khazad-Dum, the Dwarvens, and he set about founding his great kingdom within the mountain. Durin chose a location that was naturally fortified and blessed with an abundance of resources. The misty mountains were rich in ores, precious stones, and veins of gold and silver. The very rock itself seemed to hum with potential, and Durin, with his unmatched skill and vision, saw the possibilities. The dwarves began to carve their new home out of the living rock, using their unmatched skills in stonework to create vast halls and intricate passageways. As the years passed, Khazad-Dum grew, expanding deeper and deeper into the mountain. The dwarves hollowed out enormous chambers, vast enough to hold entire cities within their bounds. They built towering columns that stretched from the floors to the ceilings, sculpted to resemble great trees or the faces of their ancestors. The walls of Khazad-Dum were adorned with carvings that told the story of their people, their origins, their struggles, and their triumphs. Each hall was a testament to the dwarves' craftsmanship, a blend of beauty and function that had no equal in all of Middle-earth. As the centuries passed, Khazad-Dum became more than just a refuge for Durin's people. It became a living testament to the greatness of the dwarves. The city expanded in all directions, stretching further and further into the depths of the misty mountains, becoming a labyrinth of interconnected halls, chambers, and passageways. Khazad-Dum was not merely a collection of tunnels carved into rock. It was a masterpiece of engineering, a work of art that blended function with beauty in a way that only the dwarves could achieve. The halls of Moria, as it came to be known in the tongues of men, were vast beyond measure, their ceilings towering high above, supported by columns carved in the likeness of great trees or mighty kings. These columns were not just functional, they were symbols of the dwarves' connection to their ancestors and to the natural world. The roots of these stone trees seemed to grow deep into the earth, while their branches reached up toward the heavens, embodying the dwarves' desire to bridge the worlds above and below. But it was not just stone that the dwarves sought in the depths of the mountain. They mined for gold and silver, for gems and jewels, all of which they worked into wondrous artifacts of beauty and power. The forges of Khazad-Dum were never cold, and the sound of hammers ringing on anvils echoed through the halls day and night. The dwarves were master smiths, and their weapons and armor were prized by all who knew of them. But the greatest treasure that Khazad-Dum had to offer was yet to be discovered. One day, deep within the mountain, the dwarves came upon a vein of metal unlike any they had ever seen before. It was lighter than the softest silk, yet stronger than the hardest steel. It shone with a silvery light, and it could be beaten and shaped into any form. Yet it never tarnished, never grew dim. This was mithril, known in the tongues of the dwarves as Moria silver, and in the tongues of men as true silver. Mithril was more precious than gold, more beautiful than any gem, and it quickly became the most sought-after material in all of Middle-earth. Mithril was not just a metal, it was a symbol of wealth and power, and it became the cornerstone of Khazad-Dum's prosperity. The dwarves of Khazad-Dum guarded its secrets closely, and their wealth grew beyond measure. They crafted the finest armor and weapons from mithril, creating items of such beauty and strength that they became legendary. The mail of mithril, as light as a feather yet as strong as dragon scales, was prized above all. The elves too coveted this metal, and the dwarves forged a strong alliance with the elves of a region, trading mithril for the elves' own unmatched craftsmanship in jewels and magical artifacts. Trade between Khazad-Dum and other realms flourished during this golden age. The dwarves bartered their exquisite works for goods and services from other lands. The elves of a region, who lived to the west of the Misty Mountains, were among their closest allies. The elves, masters of craft in their own right, were drawn to the beauty of mithril, the rare and precious metal that the dwarves had discovered deep within their mountain home. The dwarves forged mithril into countless treasures, shining mail shirts that could turn any blade, crowns that gleamed with an inner light, and weapons that were as deadly as they were beautiful. The demand for mithril grew, and with it, the wealth of Khazad-Dum. The dwarves mined deeper and deeper into the mountain, following the veins of mithril wherever they led, no matter how far down they ran. The wealth of Khazad-Dum became known far and wide, and the kingdom grew in both power and influence. Under Durin and his descendants, Khazad-Dum flourished, becoming the most powerful and wealthy of all the dwarven realms. Its halls were filled with gold, silver, and precious stones, and its storerooms were overflowing with mithril. The dwarves were content, and for many long years, Khazad-Dum knew peace and prosperity. But with wealth came other things: jealousy, greed, and pride. The dwarves became ever more protective of their treasure, ever more secretive and suspicious of outsiders. They dug deeper into the mountain, driven by the desire for more mithril, more gold, more wealth. They began to lose sight of the simple joys of life: the laughter of their children, the warmth of the hearth, the beauty of the world above. Durin, the deathless, lived to see Khazad-Dum at the height of its power. But even he, with all his wisdom, could not foresee the dangers that lay ahead. As he grew older, his people grew wealthier, and with that wealth came a slow but inexorable change. The dwarves, once a people of simple and honorable values, began to be consumed by their desire for more. They began to forget the old warnings, the tales of ancient evils that lay hidden in the depths of the earth. Durin himself was not immune to the lure of mithril. He knew of its value, its potential to bring his people even greater wealth and power. But he also knew that the deeper the dwarves delved, the closer they came to the heart of the world, where ancient things lay buried, things best left undisturbed. He warned his people to be cautious, to not let their greed blind them to the dangers that lay ahead. Yet as the years turned to centuries, Durin's warnings were slowly forgotten. His descendants, while still wise and powerful rulers, were increasingly driven by the desire to expand their wealth and influence. The dwarves of Khazad-Dum became ever more obsessed with mithril, and they continued to dig deeper and deeper into the mountain, driven by an insatiable hunger for more. The great kingdom of Khazad-Dum, once a beacon of dwarven strength and wisdom, was beginning to change. The dwarves no longer looked to the stars above as Durin had done, but only to the darkness below where the treasures of the earth lay hidden. They did not know that in the deepest places, beyond where even their sharp eyes could see, something ancient and terrible was waiting. something that had been buried for millennia, waiting to be awakened. The dwarves were not content with simply hoarding their wealth. They used it to build and expand their kingdom, creating new halls, forges, and storehouses to hold the riches that flowed from the earth. They also sought to improve the lives of their people, constructing aqueducts to bring fresh water to their halls, building bridges over the deep chasms that crisscrossed the mountain, and creating vast underground farms where they grew mushrooms and other crops that could thrive in the dark. However, even during this golden age, there were shadows on the horizon. Rumors began to spread of a dark power rising in the east, a being of immense malice and cunning who sought to dominate all of Middle-earth. The dwarves heard whispers of Sauron, the Dark Lord, who was gathering strength in the land of Mordor. But Khazad-Dum, hidden deep within the misty mountains, seemed far removed from these troubles. The dwarves were confident in their ability to defend their realm should the need ever arise. And so life in Khazad-Dum continued, with the dwarves delving ever deeper into the mountain, driven by their desire for more mithril. They built deeper halls, greater forges, and more storerooms to hold their growing wealth. But as the dwarves mined further and further, they began to uncover things that should have remained buried. It was during these deep diggings that the first signs of trouble began to appear. The dwarves encountered strange fissures in the rock, places where the stone was unnaturally hot to the touch, where the air seemed thick with an ominous presence. Some of the older dwarves, those who still remembered the ancient tales, warned of dangers that lay deep beneath the earth, of creatures of fire and shadow that had been buried there since the world was young. But these warnings were largely dismissed. The lure of mithril was too strong, and the dwarves pressed on, believing that they could handle any threat that might arise. Despite these ominous signs, Khazad-Dum continued to thrive. The kingdom reached its zenith during the reign of Durin III, who ruled during the Second Age of Middle-earth. Under his leadership, Khazad-Dum became the greatest dwarven city in the world, unmatched in wealth, power, and influence. It was said that Durin III possessed a great ring of power, one of the 7 rings given to the dwarves by the Dark Lord Sauron. But Durin, wise as he was, did not fall under Sauron's influence as easily as others. He used the ring to strengthen his people and his kingdom, and Khazad-Dum flourished as never before. However, this period of prosperity was not to last. Even as Khazad-Dum reached the height of its power, the seeds of its downfall were being sown. The dwarves' insatiable hunger for mithril drove them to delve ever deeper into the mountain, far beyond the safe and well-traveled paths. They dug into the darkest recesses of the earth, into places where no light had ever touched, and where ancient evils lay in wait. The elves of a region, too, were not immune to the growing darkness. Sauron, in his guise as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, had come among them, offering his knowledge and power to help them create objects of great beauty and potency. Celebrimbor and his smiths, blinded by their desire to create, accepted Sauron's gifts, and together they forged the rings of power. But Sauron betrayed them, creating the One Ring to control all the others. And when his treachery was revealed, war broke out between Sauron and the elves. Khazad-Dum, though distant from the heart of the conflict, was not unaffected. The close ties between the dwarves and the elves were strained, as the elves were driven to the brink of destruction. Though Durin III sent aid to the elves of Aragen, it was too late to prevent the fall of their kingdom. The doors of Khazad-Dum were shut, and the dwarves withdrew into their mountain fastness, cutting themselves off from the outside world. Inside Khazad-Dum, the Golden Age was slowly coming to an end. The deeper they dug, the more they encountered strange and troubling things. Ancient relics from a time before the world was fully formed. Strange veins of rock that pulsed with an eerie light, and deep chasms that seemed to breathe with the heat of some unseen fire. The dwarves began to whisper among themselves of the old tales, of the creatures of flame and shadow that had been driven into the depths of the earth in ages past. But the lure of mithril was again too strong, and the dwarves pressed on, believing that their skill and strength could overcome the dangers. As the Third Age of Middle-earth dawned, the great kingdom of Khazad-Dum was already ancient. The halls that had once echoed with the sound of hammers and the laughter of dwarven children now seemed quieter, more solemn. The dwarves had grown more secretive, their hearts weighed down by the centuries of digging, mining, and forging in the deep places of the world. And still, they dug deeper. For all their wisdom and skill, the dwarves had fallen prey to the very thing that Durin the Deathless had warned against. Greed, the lure of mithril, that precious and elusive metal, drove them to continue their excavation far beyond the safe reaches of the upper levels. The veins of mithril had dwindled, becoming harder to find, yet the dwarves pressed on, convinced that deeper within the earth lay riches beyond their wildest dreams. It was in the year 1980 of the Third Age, during the reign of Durin VI, that the dwarves of Khazad-Dum finally broke through into an ancient cavern, a vast chamber hidden deep within the roots of the misty mountains. It was a place untouched by any living creature since the world was young, a place where even the stone itself seemed to tremble with age and power. As the dwarves pushed forward, their pickaxes struck something far older and more terrible than anything they had ever encountered. Beneath the rock, beneath the deepest veins of mithril, lay a creature of ancient evil, a Balrog of Morgoth, one of the last of its kind. This demon of shadow and flame had been buried deep within the earth since the end of the First Age, hidden away after Morgoth's defeat, waiting in the darkness for untold millennia. The dwarves had unwittingly awoken this ancient terror, and its wrath was swift and terrible. The Balrog, known to the dwarves as Durin's Bane, emerged from the depths in a fury of fire and shadow. Its presence alone was enough to send terror coursing through the hearts of the dwarves. Here was a creature of pure malevolence, a being of immense power that had once served Morgoth, the dark enemy of the world. It was said that the Balrog was a Maya, a spirit of fire, twisted and corrupted by Morgoth into a being of destruction. The halls of Khazad-Dum, once filled with the sounds of industry and song, now echoed with the screams of the dwarves as they fled before the fury of Durin's Bane. The creature's very footsteps shook the earth, and its breath was like a furnace, scorching the air and igniting everything in its path. The dwarves fought valiantly, their axes and hammers flashing in the dim light of their torches, but against the Balrog, their weapons were of little use. This was a foe beyond their power, a being of ancient and terrible might that could not be defeated by mere steel. Durin VI, the king of Khazad-Dum, was among the first to fall. He stood defiantly against the Balrog, wielding his axe with all the strength and skill of his ancestors. But the Balrog was relentless, with a single blow. It struck Durin down, ending his life and casting a shadow over his people. The death of Durin VI was a grievous blow to the dwarves, and it marked the beginning of the end for their great kingdom. In the aftermath of Durin's death, the dwarves were thrown into disarray. Without their king, they were leaderless, and panic spread through the ranks. The Balrog continued its rampage, driving the dwarves ever deeper into despair. Many fled the city in terror, seeking refuge in the upper levels of the mountain or in the wilds beyond the gates of Khazad-Dum. Others, too proud or too stubborn to abandon their home, stayed behind to fight, hoping against hope that they could somehow drive the creature back into the depths from whence it came. But the Balrog was unstoppable. It was a creature born of fire and shadow, a being that thrived in the darkness of the deep places. It pursued the dwarves through the halls of Khazad-Dum, leaving destruction in its wake. The forges that had once burned with the fires of creation were now extinguished, their flames consumed by the Balrog's wrath. The great halls, once filled with light and life, were now dark and empty, their grandeur reduced to rubble. The dwarves fought on, but they could not hold out forever. As the years passed, more and more of them were forced to flee, abandoning their ancient home to the darkness that now ruled within. The once mighty kingdom of Khazad-Dum was slowly emptied, its people scattered to the winds. Those who survived carried with them the memory of their fallen king and the terror of Durin's Bane, but they also carried the knowledge that their greatest creation, their most prized possession, had been the cause of their downfall. By the year 1981 of the Third Age, just 1 year after the Balrog was awakened, Khazad-Dum was finally abandoned. The last of the dwarves, led by Durin VI's son, Naini Furs, fled the city, sealing the gates behind them. They left behind their treasures, their forges, and their homes. But most of all, they left behind the dream that had sustained them for so many generations. Khazad-Dum, The greatest of all dwarven kingdoms was no more. The city that had once been a beacon of dwarven strength and ingenuity now lay in darkness, its halls silent and empty, its forges cold. The only sound that remained was the faint echo of the Balrog's footsteps, deep within the mountain, a reminder of the price that had been paid for delving too deep. In the years that followed, Khazad-Dum became a place of legend, a ghostly ruin haunted by the memory of its former glory. The dwarves who survived the fall of their kingdom scattered across Middle-earth, some finding refuge in the lonely mountain, others in the Iron Hills, or even as far as the Blue Mountains to the west. They spoke of their lost home with reverence and sorrow, remembering the beauty of the halls of Khazad-Dum, but also the tragedy that had befallen them. The elves and men of Middle-earth too came to know of the fall of Khazad-Dum. They told tales of the great kingdom that had once stood in the heart of the misty mountains, and of the terrible creature that now dwelt within its depths. They called the city Moria, the Black Chasm, a name that spoke of the darkness that had consumed it. Moria became a place of fear, a warning to those who might be tempted to delve too deep in search of riches. Yet, even as Khazad-Dum lay in ruin, its story was not yet finished. The dwarves, though scattered and diminished, did not forget their ancestral home. The line of Durin continued, and the dream of reclaiming Khazad-Dum remained alive in the hearts of the dwarves. But the shadow of Durin's bane loomed large, a constant reminder of the cost of their ambition. For nearly 1,000 years, Khazad-Dum remained abandoned, a place of desolation and darkness. The memory of its fall passed into legend, and few dared to venture into its depths. But the dwarves did not forget. They spoke of the Balrog with fear and hatred, but also with a sense of unfinished business. The kingdom of Khazad-Dum, once the greatest of all dwarven realms, had fallen, but the dwarves were a people who did not easily surrender to fate. In the darkened halls of Moria, the spirit of Durin's line remained unbroken, and one day the dwarves would return. They would face the shadow that had driven them from their home, and they would reclaim the legacy of their ancestors. But that day was still far off, and the halls of Khazad-Dum would remain silent for many more years, haunted by the memory of its fall and the shadow of the Balrog that still lurked within its depths. In the years following the fall of Khazad-Dum, the once great dwarven city became a name of fear and legend, its ancient halls now a shadowed tomb within the misty mountains. To the outside world, Moria, as it came to be known, was a place of desolation, haunted by dark tales and whispers of evil. It lay in darkness, its grandeur and might now reduced to eerie ruins, a monument to ambition and its terrible cost. The great city, with its once bustling forges and echoing halls, now stood silent, its splendor hidden beneath layers of dust and debris. The grandeur of the dwarven architecture, with its towering columns and intricate carvings, remained, but they were now obscured by shadows and the detritus of long-abandoned industry. The mithril mines, once a source of unrivaled wealth, were now filled with the echoes of a past age and the menacing presence of the Balrog. The surrounding lands were affected by the darkened fate of Khazad-Dum. The entrance to the city, hidden deep within the mountains, became a place of ominous legend. For many years, few dared to approach the gates of Moria, and even those who did spoke of an unnatural coldness that emanated from the mountain, a chill that seemed to seep into the bones and unsettle the mind. The once thriving trade routes and settlements that had been supported by the wealth of Khazad-Dum fell into disrepair, and the region around the misty mountains became more isolated and foreboding. The dwarves who had escaped from Moria scattered across Middle-earth, taking refuge in various strongholds. In the lonely mountain, Thorin Oakenshield and his kin sought to rebuild and recover from their loss. They carried with them the memory of their lost home and the promise to one day reclaim it. In the Iron Hills, other dwarves found solace and security, their hearts heavy with the grief of their lost kingdom, but their spirits unbroken. The legacy of Khazad-Dum lived on in their tales and their songs, passed down through the generations as a reminder of what had been lost and what might yet be regained. But while the dwarves mourned and remembered, the world beyond Khazad-Dum continued to turn. The shadows of the mountain remained undisturbed for many years, but the legend of Moria persisted. tales of the lost city, its treasures, and its dark guardian became stories of cautionary warning, recounted by those who lived in the lands surrounding the misty mountains. For a time, Moria was forgotten, a place where few ventured and even fewer returned. However, the Balrog that had driven the dwarves from their home remained, a creature of unending malice and power. The spirit of the creature seemed to merge with the very essence of Moria, becoming a part of the mountain's dark heart. Its presence was felt throughout the ruins, and the air seemed to thrum with a malevolent energy. In the absence of the dwarves, other beings began to take notice of the once great city. The goblins and orcs of the misty mountains, ever eager to seize new territories and expand their dominions, began to venture into the abandoned halls of Moria. They found the darkened corridors and chambers of the city to their liking, as it provided a safe haven from their enemies and a place to consolidate their power. The creatures of the dark were drawn to the ruins, making Moria their own and multiplying in the dark recesses of the mountain. The orcs and goblins, however, were not the only creatures to be affected by the darkness of Moria. The forest of Lothlorien, situated to the west of the misty mountains, felt the creeping influence of the malevolent power emanating from the mountain. The elves of Lothlorien, led by the Lady Galadriel and Lord Celeborn, were aware of the growing shadow and its impact on their lands. The darkness from Moria seemed to spread, affecting the surrounding lands and causing an uneasy tension in the region. During this time, the Fellowship of the Ring, in their quest to destroy the One Ring, found themselves facing the haunted remnants of Khazad-Dum. As they traveled through Middle-earth, the Fellowship encountered the tales of Moria, and their journey brought them to the very gates of the fallen city. The dark history of Khazad-Dum was no longer a distant legend, but a reality that they would come to confront. As the Fellowship entered Moria, they found themselves in the midst of a place that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The grand halls and towering columns, though still impressive, were now shrouded in darkness and decay. The once great city was now overrun by orcs and other dark creatures, and the very essence of the place seemed to pulsate with an ominous energy. The shadow of the Balrog still lingered, and its presence was felt in the cold air and the unsettling silence that pervaded the ruins. The Fellowship's journey through Moria was fraught with danger and darkness. The orcs that had taken over the city were a constant threat, attacking the members of the Fellowship and making their passage through the darkened halls perilous. The deeper they ventured into Moria, the more they encountered the remnants of the city's grandeur and the signs of its tragic fall. The heart of Moria, where the Balrog had made its lair, was a place of profound horror. The creature's presence was a shadow over the ruins, and its fiery wrath was a constant threat. The Fellowship faced the Balrog in the depths of the ancient city, and the encounter was a stark reminder of the power and malice that had driven the dwarves from their home. The battle with the Balrog was fierce and desperate. Gandalf the Grey, using his knowledge and power, faced the creature in a confrontation that would test his strength and resolve. The struggle between the wizard and the Balrog was a clash of ancient powers, and the outcome was uncertain. The fight was not only a battle for survival, but also a symbolic struggle against the darkness that had consumed Khazad-Dum. In the end, the Fellowship managed to escape Moria, but the impact of their journey through the ruins was profound. The darkness and danger of Moria served as a stark reminder of the price of ambition and the consequences of delving too deep. The ruins of Khazad-Dum remained a haunting reminder of the past, a place where the shadows of history and the echoes of a once great kingdom lingered. As the Fellowship moved on to their next challenges, the story of Moria continued to echo through the lands of Middle-earth. The memory of the dwarves' fall. As the centuries passed after the fall of Khazad-Dum, the tale of Moria became interwoven with the larger tapestry of Middle-earth's history. The once great dwarven kingdom, now a shadowy ruin beneath the misty mountains, left an indelible mark on the world far beyond its crumbling halls. The legacy of Moria was not just a story of loss and darkness, but also a testament to the enduring spirit of those who remembered it. In the Lonely Mountain, the most famous of these new strongholds, Thorin Oakenshield and his kin set about rebuilding their lives and their fortunes. The wealth they found in the reclaimed treasure of Erebor was not just a boon, but also a symbol of their enduring hope. They spoke often of Khazad-Dum, of its glory and its tragedy, and the memory of their ancestral home became a source of inspiration and strength. The tale of Moria also found its way into the lore of other peoples. The elves, particularly those of Lothlorien and Rivendell, were keenly aware of the shadow that Moria cast upon the world. They had seen the growing influence of darkness from the mountain, and had watched as the legend of Khazad-Dum became a cautionary tale. Elrond, the Lord of Rivendell, and Galadriel, the Lady of Lothlorien, often spoke of the dwarves' downfall, not as a mere tale of woe, but as a lesson in the perils of unchecked ambition and the consequences of disturbing ancient evils. The memory of Moria became a bridge between the past and the present, linking the stories of the ancient dwarven kingdom with the ongoing struggles of Middle-earth. The legacy of Khazad-Dum was reflected in the actions and decisions of those who knew its history, and its influence was felt across the land. One of the most significant legacies of Khazad-Dum was the impact it had on the dwarven people themselves. The fall of Moria became a defining moment in dwarven history, shaping their identity and their future. The tales of the great city, its grandeur, and its tragic end were passed down through generations of dwarves. These stories were not merely recounted as historical events, but were woven into the fabric of dwarven culture, becoming a central part of their heritage. The dwarves who had fled Moria were determined to honor their ancestors and to learn from the mistakes of the past. They became more cautious in their dealings, both in their mining endeavors and in their interactions with other races. The lessons learned from the tragedy of Khazad-Dum influenced their approach to wealth and power, and they sought to ensure that their new homes and strongholds would not fall prey to the same fate as their ancestral city. The longing to reclaim Khazad-Dum remained a driving force for many dwarves, a beacon of hope and a symbol of what had been lost. The journey to retake the city and restore its former glory was a dream that persisted through the ages. In the meantime, the world outside Khazad-Dum continued to change. The events of the Third Age, including the rise of Sauron and the quest to destroy the One Ring, shaped the course of history and brought new challenges and opportunities for the peoples of Middle-earth. The story of Moria and its legacy became a part of this larger narrative, influencing the decisions and actions of those who were involved in the great events of the age. As the Fourth Age approached, the memory of Khazad-Dum and its legacy continued to shape the world. The end of the Third Age saw the resolution of many of the great conflicts that had defined the era, and the dwarf, along with the other peoples of Middle-earth, faced a new era of rebuilding and renewal. The lessons learned from the fall of Moria were not forgotten, and the legacy of Khazad-Dum served as a guide for the future. The story of Moria, once a tale of tragedy and darkness, became a part of the rich tapestry of Middle-earth's history. It was a reminder of the grandeur that had been lost and the resilience that had emerged in its wake. The legacy of Khazad-Dum was not just a story of what had been, but also of what might yet be achieved. The story of Moria also found its way into the larger narrative of Middle-earth. The legend of the great dwarven city, with its rise and fall, became a part of the folklore and mythology of the world. It was a tale that spoke to the themes of ambition, power, and the struggle between light and darkness. The lessons learned from Khazad-Dum became a part of the wisdom of Middle-earth, shaping the course of history and influencing the actions of those who sought to build a better future. And so, as the ages turned and the world moved forward, the legacy of Moria remained a powerful and enduring presence. The once great city, now a shadow beneath the misty mountains, continued to influence the lives and destinies of those who remembered it. The tale of Khazad-Dum, with its grandeur and its tragedy, became a timeless reminder of the price of ambition and the strength of the spirit. The echoes of Moria's past continued to resonate through the ages, a reminder of what had been lost and what might yet be regained. The legacy of Khazad-Dum was not just a story of downfall, but also one of resilience and hope, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who faced the darkness and sought to find a new path forward.